Welcome to Swing State Update 2024. I am excited to be joined by the great Austin Smith.
Happy to be back. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Tyler.
I shaved off my mustache.
You did. You
And
did. It's the first thing I noticed when I came into the office today, because it's gone.
Well, I shaved it off, and my wife, who was the one that demanded that I have it, I looked at her in the face directly, and she didn't even notice it was gone. So I was like, okay, so I've just been living this life for the last 6 months for no reason. No, excited to be here. It's 2024. Next week, session starts, and State Representative Austin Smith will be back in, and we will be cooking on 2024. And so
a lot going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are coming to you live this year with these shows going live. And so we're excited about that. Next Monday, we will have our first live show after Austin will actually get out of day one of the legislature being called into session. And I'm wearing my Georgia hat, because, our great Orion on our team gifted this to me for Christmas. So excited to have it. So I still think Georgia got massively cheated, and I would have loved to see, a game between Georgia and then who else did they play? Who did Alabama lose to?
Georgia, right? I don't remember. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to this. I don't know.
So we have now Michigan. So our Michigan guys. So Luke is up in Michigan that runs our team
Luke
up there.
And Riley and Miguel.
They had the big victory over Alabama. Would have loved to see a Michigan Georgia game, but here we are. It's okay. We're here. But anyways, so we have a great show today just to kind of go through as we're kicking off this year. We're going to tap into, we haven't tapped really into Nevada too much since the beginning of this year. So first we're going to be joined by the great Sigal Chadha, who is the National Committee woman for the state of Nevada. And I serve with her. She's one of the good guys on the RNC. And so we'll talk with her about what's going on with the caucus. You're going to hear a lot of drama happening, I think, after the Iowa caucuses are done about Nevada and what's going on there. The second thing we're going to talk about is Colorado. We'll get into all of that with Trump being barred, and then kind of break down exactly what's going on there, because a lot of people are still really confused. So we'll talk about how the RNC ties into that. And then last, we'll jump into Georgia. We'll hit the hat and talk about the Georgia maps being redrawn, what you need to know on the front of redistricting, all the new maps that are going to be coming out in Georgia, and what this means for the conservative movement. So with that, we'll go and kick it off. Excited to be joined by Sigal. Sigal, are you there?
For the conservative movement. Here. Hi, Tyler.
So with
Hi,
that,
Austin.
we'll go and kick it off. Excited to be joined by Sigal.
Is in Las Vegas.
Are we okay? Sigal, sorry about that. Hang on, we're gonna pause. We're recording, so we'll cut and then we'll come back in. Why don't you guys count us in when we're ready for? Oh, we're live right now?
Nice. We'll do it live.
Oh, I didn't realize we were live right now. Okay, well, cool.
We'll do it live.
Are we? Can everybody hear us okay? Are we good? We're back. Or sorry, we had a little technical difficulty. Sigal, you're back. You're in. We can't hear. I can't hear Sigal at all. Well, hang on. We'll pause while we wait for Sigal to come back in. I think we had a little technical glitch here happen. Sigal, we'll bring you back in just 1 second if you can hear us. But let's go ahead and skip to. Then we'll talk about Trump being barred in Colorado, and then we'll talk about the RNC implications, and then hopefully we'll have Sigal back in here in just a second. So let's talk about that. So those last week, kind of prior to Christmas, we had all of the Trump getting, quote unquote, kicked off the ballot. And there were a ton of questions being asked of what the heck is going on there. And a lot of people, there were a lot of, Twitter spaces happening and things like that where people were talking about this.
Right.
I don't know if you're following all this.
I did.
So I don't know if I don't think we have a clip, but we do have a screen grab. Oh, we got Sigal back. Sigal, can you hear us? Again, sorry about that. Well,
We're back.
let's talk about this real quick. We'll incorporate you in this conversation about Colorado, and then we'll go right into Nevada, because I think this actually involves the RNC. So I want to get your take on this and what your interpretation. So I was explaining the Colorado situation to some people. So those that are following, they were trying to kick Trump off the primary ballot in Colorado, the same way that they were talking about this with Maine. And other places they're trying to do this. They're trying to do this all over the country.
So he can't earn delegates.
Well, yeah. So I think their hope is that, ultimately that state parties are going to go along with this. Trump doesn't earn delegates in those states, and then it makes it more difficult for him to become the nominee. But I want to make something super clear for everybody that's listening. The way that we nominate presidents on any party is that you have to go to a national party convention, get nominated, and that's how you are introduced. And most state law is written in this way, that the only people that will be considered for ballot access are those that are nominated by the national party. Or you have to jump through hoops to go through an independent candidacy in each state, right? Did I get that right, Sigal? So
Yep.
So this is like the crazy thing that I was trying to explain to people, is that when Trump, as long as no state party goes along with this insanity, which I don't think any will, and they'll still hold a caucus, which is a privately held election, like what they're doing in Nevada. So that's a perfect transition. We'll talk about Nevada in a second. You hold a privately funded, privately held caucus, which is what they do in Iowa, which is what they do in different states. Then Trump will still earn delegates. Trump right now is like 98% likely to win the nomination in Milwaukee at the RNC convention. And then at that point, they would have to bar him from the general, which you actually technically aren't voting for a candidate. You're voting for electors, right? So, and Seagal's been in the middle of this elector conversation, right? Because the things out in Nevada. We won't get into all those hairy details. I happen to know a lot about it because I was an elector last time in Arizona, which is so much fun. So glad I did that. But this is the whole thing, is that people don't realize, right, Seagal, that you're actually voting for electors on the ballot, not for a candidate, ultimately, when it comes to the general election next year, right?
Yeah, well, just to talk about how we did it here in Nevada, and we knew that this was coming down the pike because we just saw the trend of what is going on with Trump and the court system and the whole judiciary across the country. And one of the issues that we have when it comes to primaries is that really, if you preclude a candidate from being on the primary, then obviously they can't advance to a general election. And we knew that that was a possibility. And, along with every other issue that we have with Nevada, with universal mail-in ballots and, no voter ID and all these issues, we said that we were going to control the destiny of the Republican candidates. And that's why we chose to go with the caucus. And, today everybody is thrilled that Nevada is doing a caucus because there's no way that Trump can be thrown off a ballot in a presidential primary because he's not even participating in a presidential primary.
Yeah. And this is the important part to focus in on, is when Trump is on the ballot, technically for the general, you're not voting for a president. We don't have a democratic vote for president, right? This is like the most important thing. Unfortunately, most kids never took civics, right? And we weren't taught it, quite frankly. Like, nobody knew this. I didn't come out of high school really knowing about electors versus, the democratic vote for president, right? Like, there is no democratic vote for president.
No.
You vote for electors, who electors then go vote on the floor of or they send in their votes that get read on the floor of Congress, who elect a president, right?
Right. And, I could speak directly to that because I'm one of the attorneys on the Nevada 6 electors case. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you have this situation now. So this is why I keep telling people, everybody chill out, all right? If they try to keep Trump off the ballot in Colorado and Maine for the primary, guess what? The party in Colorado has already come out and said they're doing a caucus, right? So the party's already...
Yeah. And,
So he's going to
one of
get
the
the.
things, yeah, I'm sorry, Tyler, go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
One of the things that a lot of these secretaries of state and clerks don't understand that the Supreme Court ruled on this. It's the landmark case on how parties are entitled to select their presidential candidates. And, the case, again, it's very, it is the standard, the legal standard for which presidential candidates are nominated. And,
Mhm.
it's DNC v. Wisconsin, extra lawful lay. And this is the case that anybody that has contacted us, because we literally litigated caucus versus primary. We are currently in the Supreme Court because what we were trying to do is first get the Secretary of State to acknowledge that there is only one way that a presidential nominee can be nominated, and that is with the autonomy of the Nevada GOP, which we got them to concede to. And the second one was, of course, to save the taxpayers' money with this useless presidential primary. That you and I have talked about this.
Yep.
The only participant is Nikki Haley, and Runbeck is making a ton of money in Nevada off of that.
Well, we'll get into that in just a second, but I want to close the loop on this whole Colorado issue. So this is why people shouldn't worry, okay? People should not worry, Austin, because ultimately what's going to happen is this, really concisely. You have the delegates that are going to be sent to the convention that are going to nominate the president. Trump is like almost certainly going to be nominated at the RNC. There's no stopping that train. They're not going to be able to get enough states to get off board. He's the guy. He's our nominee. Once he's the nominee, these elections that are happening in all 50 states are for slates of electors. Now, they can choose not to print Trump's name on the ballot, but no matter what,
those electors,
the Republicans are
vote for president.
So when you were voting for electors last time, you were voting for me and 10 other people in Arizona. In Nevada, as Sigal just said, they were voting for 6 people, right, who said, I am going to vote for Donald Trump for president. Now, the place where they're going to have to get in the middle and try to stop this entire process if they want to prevent Trump from becoming president will be on the floor of Congress.
Congress, sorry.
When they open up the elector votes, because there's nothing they can stop constitutionally from me voting for Trump. I could vote for Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse. And my state laws might say I go to jail for that, right? It might say I go to jail for voting for, as an elector, for Austin Smith when, my state voted for X person, right? But that's a totally separate issue from what actually gets submitted as elector votes, goes to the floor of Congress, gets read by the vice president, and then ultimately that's how they count those people. Now, there was a pathway here for Congress to fight this, right? And this is why it's so important to control Congress. This is why it's so important to have members of Congress get elected, because ultimately this is a really important institution that has to be defended. But that's a battle that will happen down the road, I believe, in January, when they count all those votes, which I think is the second week of January, when they come across all that right before they do the all the pomp and circumstance of the inauguration, that all happens in that order. So when people ask, well, this is so bad, this is like the fall of our democratic institutions. Like, well, first of all, this isn't a democratic institution. You need to understand how we elect a president. And number 2, there's no way for them to stop electors. Now, if they start getting electors to not vote for them, that's a different story. That's called a wandering elector. That is also illegal in some states, right? That becomes an issue. That's a separate set of issues. If the Congress tries to stop on the floor of Congress, that's a separate issue. Let's make sure that we talk about these things concisely. So we'll have to talk a lot more about that as time goes on, Sigal. We'd love to have you back. But we want to talk Nevada with you. So what's going on in Nevada? Give us the quick rundown. Why is there this state-sanctioned North Korean election that nobody's participating in except for Nikki Haley? And why is there a caucus? What's the history of it? And what do people need to know?
So in 2021, after COVID, And of course, with the finger of Harry Reid still very much alive in Nevada, they decided to pass legislation to, instead of having the Democrats do a caucus and the Republicans do a caucus, to kind of streamline everything into a presidential preference primary, where the candidates would then register with a state, and the nominee would be the person that would have the most amount of votes. During the same year, that's when we got universal mail-in ballots, counting elections for up to 14 days,
Wow.
early voting. Election results a month after the election. So the, Nevada GOP really came out strong and said, wait a minute, our system is so untrustworthy that we will not chance our primaries being subjected to these cockamamie election laws of the state of Nevada. And so, really, what we decided is we're going to continue going with a caucus, which we've been caucusing in the state of Nevada for decades before the Democrats decided to come up with this presidential preference primary. And so that's where we are. They want to keep on going with their presidential preference primary. Why? Because obviously, Runback Election Services will make millions off of printing ballots for our Secretary of State. And they really don't care about election integrity in Nevada. And we do at the Nevada GOP.
Well, so why are they? So why is the state still moving forward? I mean, isn't this such a joke? I mean, it's so embarrassing for the state to force this election, and basically no one serious is participating in it. What is the future going to hold for Nevada, the Republican Party, and how you guys address this? And why is the governor not really doing anything about this since he got elected?
Well, the governor has chosen not to take a position on this. He hasn't specifically opposed it, but he hasn't taken a position on this. And that's a discussion that we can have off the record. But ultimately, the Nevada GOP is the will of the people. We can ensure with paper ballots, voter ID, you must be a registered Republican to vote in the caucus. Don't forget, one of the beauties that we have in Nevada is same-day registration. Mm-hmm. So you could really be a Democrat, walking in to the voting booth and then change your registration and register as a Republican and completely dilute the Republican vote. It's a joke.
That's what they want, right? Yeah. I mean, it seems like that's kind of the goals. They want to be able to manipulate and change our election. And that's the thing too. You have to keep in mind, Nevada's not that big of a state. I mean, it's easily a presidential preference could be easily swung with a few thousand votes, right? And if in a concerted effort with enough money, could give you a different result in a presidential preference because of the population base, right? I mean, and it's all concentrated in Clark County too. So.
Right. 2/3 of our state and our voters are in Clark County. So all you have to do is to get, 15, 30,000 Democrats to go register as Republicans on the same day, and they will completely dilute and interfere with the presidential election.
They could nominate basically a Democrat if they wanted to.
Sure.
They could vote for a Democrat, masquerading as a Republican, which, in some states we have a lot of that. We have that in California now because of Top 2 and everything else. And then, by the way, that's also what they want with ranked choice voting.
Well, that's what I was just about to bring up. So, Segal, you guys have on the ballot again the opportunity to kill the move to bring ranked choice voting to Nevada. And I think this is a bigger operation that the powers that be, the left, is trying to do, is get rid of parties nominating somebody to that position. Plus, we're going to change the manner in how you actually elect those people, that only a few certain select know the outcome of that election or can manipulate that election, especially in a place like Nevada where they know those 6 electoral votes make a big difference for 270 to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are hitting the ground running on ranked choice voting. We're getting out there. Look, the caucus is our first priority.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're first in the West. We're the third one in the country. We've got all hands on deck, and we really want to see this done in an efficient and as close to perfection as you could possibly have.
Well, and this is a good point that was just brought up, right? Is that if they part of the reason why I think they hate your guys' caucus so much and they wanted to institute this election is because you basically can't have ranked choice voting where you still have caucuses that exist. Does that make sense?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
You get one vote.
and
in a
this
caucus.
and this is what should scare everybody is that you could say okay, well, we'll do ranked choice voting for, I mean, this is the argument that's literally made by the ranked choice voting proponents. Oh, well, we'll just do ranked choice voting for these other elections and you guys can still do presidential preferences however you want. Well, this is how sick and transparent these people are. I believe they instituted the state-run, state-sanctioned election with plans to ultimately introduce jungle primaries or ranked choice
100%.
voting or top 5 voting, whatever that you want to call it. And they knew that the part of the reason they wanted to do that was so they could manipulate the presidential election in Nevada. I mean, how scary is that,
absolutely.
Sigal?
It is very scary because unfortunately the Democrats think 10 steps ahead, and we've got attorneys like Mark Elias and Perkins Coie who are really machines
Yep.
in every state. And I thank God that the Nevada GOP is really a grassroots GOP, and we've got the strength to stand up to what really, look, Tyler, you and I talk about the uniparty. We talk about the establishment Republicans that are more than willing to sell out the grassroots for pecuniary gain. And, luckily right now, the Nevada GOP is so strong that we really pushed back in spite of all the criticism, in spite of the establishment really obstructing us every possible way in protecting the grassroots. And, thankfully we are that strong.
And I think that's what it all comes down to. It's about it. This is the grassroots versus consultant-driven lobbyist organizations that are so upset that you do have parties like the Nevada Republican Party that are grassroots-driven, the Arizona Republican Party, sometimes even most of the Georgia Republican Party. And now they're not, the consultant lobbying class, they're not understanding why we're nominating these certain people, these candidates for offices. And so institute ranked choice voting, bring the jungle primary, get rid of the caucuses because they just want a few select people to manipulate the outcome of elections. And we're seeing it in Arizona. We're seeing it in Nevada. It's going to start to trickle into all the rest of these battleground states. And hat tip to you, Sigal, for just playing offense on this issue because we can't take our eye off the ball. I mean, as soon as we give them an inch on this issue, they will take a mile, and primary elections specifically, will never be the same again.
Well, I want to brag about Sigal too, because, no, really, you just brought it up, right? And we've zeroed in on the problem. And this is the problem that we have to address. We have to talk about. We have to be serious about. If you're on the RNC and you're looking down the barrel here at what we're up against, the Mark Eliases of the world, the Perkins Coies of the world, they have literally 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th options that are better than anything that the right has built as an established institution. And part of the reason is because the left has taken over all of these, all of the systems that go into lawfare.
Yeah.
And they've literally threatened down to the licensing, the livelihoods of every single lawyer who dares to speak up. And there's so few of those out there. And Sigal's one of them, one of the very few, very, 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 very few. And so, again, I cannot speak more highly, and we should be we should be literally rolling out red carpet, trumpets, building statues for the Sigals. We talk about hard meat. so many when we go to the RNC meetings because we don't have you, right? Like we need 1,000 more of you, and we need entire firms that are built around you, and we haven't made that investment. And so, what do you think is the future? How do you think we need to attack this so that is the future for the Republican Party?
Look, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of lawyers collaborating, and collaborating aggressively. And so yeah, I mean, here's the thing: it's it's laughable when I eat a bar complaint from a group of Democrats in Arizona that that came out and filed bar complaints against all the attorneys on Abe Hamaday's team. Now, luckily, the State Bar of Arizona kind of tossed it out and just said this is a joke. But as we see state bars and judiciaries that are becoming more activist, yeah, we lawyers, we put our licenses on the line, and the only way to fight back is to collaborate. So, lawyers like myself, lawyers like Harmeet, Alex Colladin
Yeah.
in Arizona. I mean, we've just got a group of warriors. Jennifer Wright in Arizona,
Yeah.
brilliant election lawyer, and and the reality of it is you have to put the craft before any type of morality or anything. It's about the craft, and it's about the collaborations that we just have to get together. This isn't about ego. This isn't about who's doing the job, who gets the credit. It's let's plow forward the same way that Perkins Coie does, and and really protect our elections and protect civil liberties in this country.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, this goes back to the caucus question and presidential preferences and primaries, is that for the longest time, that the right has always, we just blown a bunch of money on, contested primaries, whether they were needed or not. And a lot of the establishment doesn't understand by wasting that 100,000, 300,000 on a primary somewhere needs to go into the bank account for the lawfare that's eventually going to come with the general election. That's huge. Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, where you get, I mean, Doug Ducey was a perfect example in Arizona where they wasted hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on down ballot Republican primaries. And there was almost little to no money left for the general election, or they didn't spend it. And so now you have a situation in Nevada where you guys are fighting tooth and nail legally to have your own caucus. And because there's no, big financial backing, because the establishment has kind of taken their ball and going home, you guys are, clawing every step of the way to ensure that the people, the body, the grassroots Republican Conservative Party activists decide our nominee. And so I think also here what we need to understand is that a place like Nevada, where, Joe Biden is barely ahead of Donald Trump, or I think Trump will be competitive in Nevada this next time around like he was in 2020, they're going to throw out every stop that they have, from using the powers of the Secretary of State in that office, from the lawyers that they have in those states, from their legislature, whatever power they need to keep those 6 electoral votes for Joe Biden. So again, just a hat tip to you guys for fighting tooth and nail, because there's a lot of people who don't understand like how this whole process works, the background of it, of having, good party leaders and party activists who dedicate, most of their life and time to ensuring that these are effectively done in a responsible and respectful way for the voters of that state.
Yeah, Sigal, why don't you give us your final thoughts? What do we need to be aware of in Nevada outside of paying closer attention to this caucus? I want to reiterate too what you had said. The only person that's participating in this state-sanctioned North Korean election is Nikki Haley.
Oof.
And I think that speaks a lot. And we didn't really get into these details. Maybe we should just real quickly. We're going to be talking a lot more about Runbeck. Runbeck, the company, is actually owned by the family of the guy that's the Speaker of the House in Arizona right now. He's running for Congress against Abe Hamadeh, who you know really well because you worked with Abe on all of this insanity of what happened to him. So the brother of the guy that runs Runbeck is also helping facilitate the elections in Clark County as they are doing in Maricopa County. And the only person that is on the ballot is Nikki Haley. on this fake
Yes.
fraud election. So it's
The beauty contest. I call it a beauty contest, and she's the only contestant in the Nevada beauty contest.
that's the only way she wins. So, because the other candidates are so beautiful, obviously. Don't all these dudes. No, but what is the potential for, like, why is this happening? Like, what is Runbeck doing in Nevada? How did they get there? What the heck is going on here?
So Runbeck, what Runbeck is doing in Nevada is making millions off of taxpayer dollars for Nikki Haley's beauty contest. And I'm going to be direct and concise that's all this is. It's for Nikki Haley who is going to be the only person on the ballot. But Tyler, one thing that is great about Nevada is that we have none of the above. So we are actually encouraging our voters who plan on participating in the primary to vote none of the above. So how embarrassing would it be if Nikki Haley is the only person in her beauty contest and loses to none of the above?
More wasted AFP dollars.
I said this, Sigal. I said that I sent you the tweet I put out. I think only like 10 people liked it. But Bart Simpson was like made famous. All those. Remember, he would do prank phone call Mo at Mo's Tavern.
Yeah.
And it would be like
huge ass.
Hugh is huge ass. Hey, it's huge ass here. Like, you guys should put on the ballot all these like random names. How hard is it to get on the ballot? What was the process?
Well, you can't get on anymore, but you could vote none of the above, and that's what we're encouraging.
So that's the equivalent of the huge ass, then. Huge ass
and
ICP or IP.
Right in huge ass. Right in huge ass for the Nevada presidential preference. Not Nikki Haley.
If she loses this to nobody, that is like that is terrible.
I mean, that's more embarrassing than embarrassing, and that's actually what we're telling our voters is just you're going to get your new universal mail-in ballot, vote none of the above, and listen, we're estimating that this Runbeck is going to make about $5 million
oh my gosh.
off of the Nevada ballots, and they're all whatever literature else that they're going to send and so on.
That is unbelievable. $5 million. So this comes back to, again, the left is running circles around us. They've got all of these like people pretending to be Republicans, masquerading as Republicans, helping set up and making millions of dollars off of really these falsetto election manipulation schemes, which is what this is. Like you said, you said it. I'll say it a little bit more directly than even you said it, which is like, this is just to make Nikki Haley look like she won something, because she probably won't win anything outside of this fake election. And you want to talk about fake elections? Mm-hmm. This is the fakest election of all elections that's ever existed. I would be losing my mind if I was a resident of Nevada. Losing my mind.
We are. We are. We've got our grassroots is livid over this. Listen, this is Nevada taxpayer dollars going out of state to Runbeck. And, on an election that doesn't matter, that's essentially Nikki Haley's beauty contest. That's all this is.
Why is this? We're going to have to talk about this more. I think the repercussions. But if you're Nikki Haley, why do you think this is a good idea? Like, how could anyone with a head on their shoulders think, I want to be the only person?
It exposes her for who she actually is. Is this about you or is this about the movement? Because the party and the grassroots don't want to go through with that election, but you're putting your name on that ballot to earn their votes?
Well, I said this, Sigal. I said, who at Runbeck is supporting Nikki Haley? Is there max contributions from employees of Runbeck? I would love to see that. I'd love to see it. We're going to know. We're going to see it. We're going to see the FEC reports.
It's going to be filed.
I would love to see it. They're going to have a lot of problems, a lot of explaining to do when family members of employees of Runbeck all of a sudden are max contributors to Nikki Haley post this election. And that's already a done deal. I guarantee you they've already contributed to her campaign.
Well, I think that Trump is going to win. I think Trump is going to drain the swamp. And I'd love to see a new U.S. attorney look into run back election services in Arizona.
Well, you've got other ones too, like really big operations. I think it's called Fort Orange Press. That's in New York. That operates out of New York. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Fort Orange Press. So there's a bunch of different companies that are similar to Runbeck that do something similar to Runbeck when election operations that just popped up really in the last few years. And now you have this scenario where you have people making millions of dollars off these huge counties, and they're pushing through these elections that are totally insane. It's totally insane.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well,
it's government corruption at its finest, really, when we look at it.
man, this is too much. Well, Sigal, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I know we held you here for a lot longer against your will than you wanted to be, but thank you for taking time out of your day on such short notice to talk about Nevada. If people want to follow you, where do they go, and how can they get involved to help out with the caucuses ahead, the caucus ahead in Nevada?
Well, our caucus is February 8th. You can go on the Nevada GOP's website and register, get information, and come help out. This is going to be quite the operation. We've got the establishment trying to obstruct us from seeing a successful caucus. So we'll take all the help we can get. And you know me, Tyler and Austin, I have no ego. I'm more than happy to give everybody credit for where credit is deserved. So if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter, Getter, everything, Facebook, Truth. It's Chatter for Nevada. Chatter for Nevada.
Yeah, that's perfect. Chatta for the number 4, right? Chatta
right.
for Nevada, and you had the greatest, most rhymeable campaign ever, and it's a shame that you aren't the attorney general there. It's just a shame that, but we're going to change that. We're doing some things I think that are going to ultimately end up helping Nevada out a whole lot, just the same way that we're test running here in Arizona. So we couldn't be happier about having great partners like you next door. And it's so great to see, so refreshing to see a grassroots party spawning out of the state of Nevada. So congrats on that. If you are listening, if you're in Nevada, you're around Nevada, we're going to be clipping this up. We want you to get involved. I know a lot of our boots on the ground in Nevada are planning on getting involved in helping the Nevada GOP with their caucus in the face of this North Korean Nikki Haley ruse campaign. So, Runbeck campaign. So, we're really excited to be there, to be helpful. And thanks again, Sigal. We appreciate you a ton.
Thank you so much, Tyler. You guys are doing great work.
God bless you. All right.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Well, Austin, now with that, we're going to turn to Georgia.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any clips on this Georgia front, right, Sadie?
We do. We do have one clip.
Let's go right to the clip on what's going on in Georgia on the redistricting front. Clip 2.
Here's something that's going to be very, very interesting. I don't know if anyone's talking about it. I'm going to hear it right here with you guys, is that the GOP and the black voter base, especially here in Georgia, you're hearing it from me. I've been here, vested interest here in Georgia, business owner for over 30 years. More and more black Americans you're going to see, especially in Georgia, are going to vote GOP, especially for President Trump, obviously here next year, which more and more polling is showing it's strengthening. And so with that being said, and by the way, for more black votes that are coming over right now are more attracted to the America First style agenda candidate. And that happens to be President Trump. And there's others down ballot in city councils, school board members who are gaining that also. So hopefully, Katrina and Newsmax, we won't have to keep continuing on the same old pandering drama of how many there's disproportionated blacks that can't vote. We got to vote them in. One day, my blessing and my prayer is that we can just, no matter where those districts are, every candidate get out there and earn those votes, no matter what color, what background, what national, whatever. And may the best candidate that has the best interest for the voters and the great state of Georgia, whatever state you're in, be the victor.
Wow.
So I'm tweeting this out right now for those that are listening. You can go to my Twitter and see the maps. Our team that's in Georgia had shared all this last week. The new map, the new congressional map that they're proposing really doesn't do a whole lot. It doesn't really change the Atlanta metro area a whole lot. It does switch CD 6 and 7, so McBath and McCormick basically just swapped numbers, and it changed the boundaries quite a bit around there. I think what ultimately happened was that McBath's district became a little bit more competitive, but not a whole lot. I think the original district for McBath, which was the old 7, that will now be the new 6, was like a plus 15, D plus 15. My understanding is it's like a D plus 10 now, but
that's still outside the competitive range for a Democrat, or I mean, for anybody. That's
I mean that when we talk about competitive, for those that are listening, and the way that all these, we have to deal with all these like goofy polls, and you have to deal with all these pollsters. What they consider competitive is like less than 5%, right? If it's less than a 5% voter advantage, and how they look at that is by advantage. So how many
Voter
registered
registration,
Republicans versus how many registered Democrats. Now, this becomes a little bit hairy because younger people are now registering as independent or not with a party. So even though there's a +5 Republican district or a +5 Democrat district, if independents are voting either way, it can actually be more competitive than what it looks like on paper. Right. So Georgia and Arizona have higher amounts of independent-leaning younger people.
Independents, right.
Yeah, and minorities and things like that. And so part of like what this gentleman was saying, that's the advisor to Trump, is, look, we think that, black voters are going to vote more for President Trump than even last time, which was like 5%, 10% more in some of these areas than in 2016. And if that happens, if President Trump picks up like, if he wins the black male vote, for example, in Georgia, that's like a big deal in Georgia. That's gonna start swinging things in some of these areas. Now, it may not swing this new district, right, for McBath, because you still need a really solid candidate. You need lots of money. You need all those things.
A lot of ballot chasing in that.
A lot of ballot chasing with Republicans and independents. But I mean, you have the map from what it was before redistricting in 2020 to what it was now to what it is today. You could potentially have some really, competitive scenarios come out of here, if the black vote keeps trending towards Trump and keeps trending towards Republicans.
Yeah,
So,
and here's the thing. A place like Georgia, a large black population, but also traditionally a Republican state, and it has gone back and forth plenty of times in presidential election years. So you think of 2020 Biden, 2016 Trump. It went for like Bill Clinton before. It's gone for Jimmy Carter. They've had, Republican supermajority legislature and Republican governors the last few times around. But because of the influx of a lot of people that do move to Georgia, or just the changing demographics that Tyler was talking about with independents or party not designated, whatever they call it in Georgia, will make an impact the next time in 10 years when they have to redraw these maps. And here's why. Every 10 years, when you have to redraw your congressional and your legislative district maps, they take into account where these people live, how many people live there, and they're supposed to carve it up by how many registered voters are in that area. And so you get a place like Georgia where most of the population really, outside of the Atlanta suburb area, is all spread out. But it's such a large southern state, one of the largest southern states, that these congressional districts are huge. And you get some of these counties that are bordering next to one another that may only have, a couple thousand people living in them, or maybe just a couple hundred people in that area. And so you start to get these people who draw these maps finding communities of interest, right? That's at least what they call it in Arizona. And so you've had these far left-wing groups go down to a place like Georgia because it's one of the most important states to win, 270. They said, if we can change the map a little bit, we can get more electoral votes in our favor. How many? Those electoral votes in our favor, specifically the Electoral College, because how your state works is it's your congressional districts plus your 2 senators. So Arizona has 9 congressional districts. We have 2 United States senators. That's 11 Electoral College votes. In Georgia, they have quite a few. They have a lot more than Arizona. So you get a big suburban area or a Democrat area like Atlanta, and you start putting these suburbs or these urban communities wrapped in on the congressional map into these bigger ones. Those maps, the congressional maps for those Republican districts, go from an R+15 to an R10. And then the next time they do that map, they're going to say this is a community of interest. Now it's an R+5 district. And before you know it, you've only got 2 or 3 Republican districts after 20-something years because of congressional redistricting.
So that's what they call it, is community of interest, right? So what they do when they do go through redistricting, this was the complaint that they made to try to draw these new maps all over again in Georgia. And this happens, guys. And again, the average American doesn't even realize this is going on, right? The average American doesn't even know how the whole redistricting process works. That like the Democrats are constantly trying to challenge it. They're trying to fix the system. They're trying to gerrymander. And this is where gerrymandering came in, right? The term gerrymandering, you probably heard this in a civics class in high school or college. I've talked about gerrymandering and people like are somewhat aware of it. But this really started happening in places like Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Where the Democrats controlled and dominated everything so they could draw their lines. And like you had like weird districts that had, and to be fair, gerrymandering in the last 20 years has gone way down, especially for Congress. So if you look at most maps for most states, and you can Google this and look at redistricting, most states are, things are pretty concise and consolidated and square. But now one of the things that the Democrats always try to do is now they're trying to push communities of interest. Well, why are they trying to do that? Well, if they get in a majority minority district is what they call them, a majority minority district, they can almost guarantee based off of voter registration that that's going to be a really solid Democrat district. Well, where that screws you actually is in states like Arizona and Georgia and other places, because if you have a majority minority district that you fight for, well, that puts a lot of Democrats into one district when you might need some of that Democrat spreading going around, right? And so if they ever want any kind of hope to actually win, Congressional District 6 or whatever, right? They need to make sure that more Democrats. And so part of the tricks that the Democrats try to pull in some of these places is they want to identify places where they can spread the wealth. And they also can identify, well, where can we manipulate elections? Well, Fulton County, they can manipulate. Maricopa County, they can manipulate. And when I say manipulate, that means by some of these things are by legal means, right? Where they're manipulating elections. They're controlling the process in which they do the election. We just got off the line with Seagal. There is no reason for outside organizations to be running our elections.
Right.
And you have all these private entities that are holding these things. And what we found through the lawfare element is it's much more difficult to investigate private entities that are managing your elections. That's just a fact.
They don't fall under, that's the whole thing with the Runbeck issue in Arizona. They don't fall under like public records requests because they're a private company.
They're a public-private partnership basically is what they've become for our elections. And many are like, well, that sounds wrong. It's so funny because Democrats are the first ones to talk about public-private partnerships for prisons is terrible. Like, no.
Except elections.
Right? It's like, but except elections, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, elections should be totally transparent, clear as glass. Everybody has access to all the same things. It's all run by our government. I mean, if there's one basic thing that the government should be doing, it should be running our elections, right?
That's right. And just for a quick fact, because I did this math and this research earlier this year because it was like the first election that Arizona had new maps. So like down ballot legislative district wise in Arizona, there are 12 Democrat districts outside of competitive range. There's only 10 Republican districts outside of competitive range. Who do you think that benefits? Democrats.
Yeah. Way
more than Republicans. So the rest of them are all battleground that are like D+6, D+8, D+3. That's all by design.
Yeah, and they actually, I think that they actually won. We talked about this, I think, last week before we left out of town or before Christmas break, was they want competitive districts. This is why they try to institute these independent redistricting commissions, because they can control it to be center left leaning. And even if it's 50-50, right? It's a total toss up, like an actual toss up. How do they know they're going to win these districts?
Oh, I mean, it's just by the map, how the map is drawn. They know they can go and find the votes.
Well,
They know where the
it's just ballot chasing,
Yeah,
right?
they can go find the votes.
Because now they know
where the low propensity Ds are.
they know that Republicans don't know what they're doing with this stuff, right? The RNC hasn't proven it knows what it's doing, and the DNC has given all access to all these outside groups who know what they're doing. So they're like, oh yeah, we have no problem with competitive maps. That's why in Arizona they're like, you know what, these maps aren't the best for us for Congress. And we fought really, really hard, right?
Yeah.
For Juan Ciscomani to get elected, who, is a very moderate Republican down in the southern part of the state and like former Martha McSally territory. And, for David Schweikert, to pull out a victory last election cycle in Scottsdale. But they looked at that, and then we had obviously Eli Crane in the new district that turned out to be, now it looks like it's completely unwinnable for Democrats. But they put in all these resources going, you know what, it's okay because over time we can kind of figure it out. And that David Schweikert district, even though it's 50-50 and David Schweikert barely won, I mean, if we chase more ballots, like if they're kicking themselves because if they would have put in just a couple $1 million more into that district, that's what they're doing right now, right? They're looking at this going, you know what, I think we have a real shot if we have a good candidate.
Well,
and a couple
I think
million
you're right
bucks.
because they haven't coalesced around a certain Democrat candidate in that area, right, where David Schweikert's at. And so,
well, they're not going to waste their money, right?
Yeah,
they're not going to waste their money. They're
like, we'll just let the candidates spend and try to get elected.
Well, that's what the Democrats figure out too. So they're like, you know what, we're not going to spend any money on who it is because who it is doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
What matters at the end of the day is that we chase ballots. Infrastructure, that's it. That's the John Fetterman rule, right?
I was just having that conversation with a Republican Party activist today who's been elected to things that was talking about if the conservatives and establishment don't get along, we're never going to win elections anymore. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that between both sides of that part of the party, there is no infrastructure anymore. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're not going to spend it effectively on winning these elections, chasing ballots, hiring good lawyers, fighting and redistricting, then none of it matters anymore.
Yep.
And I think some people are starting to get onto that, and some are still trying to maybe swallow it. But it's the truth.
Well, guys, we are coming to a close here in the new year. Excited about, again, this is the first live episode, so you'll be able to catch us live. If you haven't subscribed to Swing State Update, you can obviously follow here through Twitter. It looks like we had a little bit of a technical glitch on Instagram. We will be going live on Instagram in future weeks here. So between
Every
Instagram
Monday, we'll be here live.
and Twitter, we'll be doing that on just every Monday, right? And then I think our episodes go live every Friday too. Yep. So you're gonna be able to watch that, and then we're gonna be adding things and adding content, having guests on, and then giving you the up-to-date information about what's happening in real time in Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and other places. So there's no other organization I know of doing that. We want you involved. I hope you'll go to tpaction.com to get involved today. Austin and the team, we're building the largest ballot chasing army that's ever been built. We've got jobs now posted.
tpaction.com/chase the vote to get involved there if you want to chase ballots. I was talking to a friend of mine, Gentry, today. He lives in Washington. He's planning on coming down to Arizona in October and chasing ballots. We need everybody to do that. You just started going back to work this week, hopefully after the holidays, and you've got PTO scheduled for this year. Use some of that PTO to come down for a weekend or a week with the kids and grandma and grandpa. Bring the dog. It's beautiful in Arizona in October. But we're also hiring full-time people to chase ballots in Arizona. As Tyler mentioned, I run our Chase the Vote operation here at Turning Point Action, and we're going to need some solid people that live in precincts and legislative districts and congressional districts to chase low-propensity Republican ballots ahead of 2024. So tpaction.com/chase the vote.
And there are jobs posted today. We will have dozens of jobs posting over the course of the next few weeks to tpaction.com/careers. So go to tpaction.com/careers. If you'd like to come work with us, we're going to be posting jobs predominantly here in the get-go here in Arizona, Wisconsin. We're going to have jobs posted in Georgia. We want your help full time. And if you haven't taken time off work now, take time off work for October if you want to come volunteer with us. Our team would love to have you in Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and other places. This Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, Iowa, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio. We need your help. We're going to save this country. So with that, before we sign off, any last words and any last thoughts here, Austin? For the new year?
If you're in Arizona, we do have a No on Ranked Choice Voting event this week in Mesa, Arizona, sponsored by Turning Point Action, along with the Arizona Free Enterprise Club, Voter Reference Foundation, Regina Swoboda, Honest Elections Project, Tea Party Patriots Action, and AFPI. Andy Biggs will be there. Our friend Phil from Ranked Choice Voting Education, Gina Swoboda, Jenny Beth Martin, a friend of ours from Tea Party Patriots, myself, and Jordan Kittleson. This is an educational event on stopping ranked choice voting in Arizona. It's a huge issue here. So go to my Twitter. You can see it right here on the live stream, what we've got pulled up, the link that's down there on the bottom. Get signed up. It's only $5. It's going to be a great event all day long. Get educated and activated. All these organizations that are collaborating for us, we're all working together to defeat ranked choice voting in this country. But that's all I've got to say about that.
Well, great, guys. We'll have you right back here. We will be back on Friday for the recap of this week.
Can't wait.
I think Austin's going to be taking the lead there as I'm in D.C. meeting with a bunch of other organizations that are going to be helping us in the ballot chasing operation. Looking forward to seeing everyone. God bless, and we'll see you on Friday.